Hello everyone, welcome to a new thing that I want to do with my gaming channel, and which is to, make some features about games and so on and so forth. And to start off, my first feature that I would like to do is one on Dark Souls, and that is the top 8 boss fights for me personally in Dark Souls. And this is in light of how the PC version of Dark Souls is releasing in August, so that's going to be accompanied by new gaming content and of course new bosses. So I thought it would be nice to look back at the original game and see which boss battles that I personally liked. Now, why a top 8 of bosses of Dark Souls? Because it more or less represents the 1/3 of the boss battles in the game, because there are like 22 boss battles, or maybe 24 if you include the Hydra bosses as well, the mini bosses. And I think that gives a good take on the battles, whilst also not diluting the list. And the way I came up with the list, I should make note, is that I took into account a variety of factors, so not just based on difficulty alone. And these factors are, some of it is other elements like atmosphere, battle progression, and pure fun, among other things. So I'll make mention of these aspects in each particular boss as we go along. So let's start. At number 8, we have the Stray Demon. The Stray Demon is definitely one of the tougher boss fights in the game, and you'll have actually seen him early in the game as you were walking out of the Undead Asylum. And he comes equipped with a giant axe which can inflict a lot of damage, and he has a lot of area of effect attacks too, meaning you really need to watch out when you fight him. And it doesn't help that the Stray Demon is pretty big and he fights in a pretty small area in comparison. And the best part of this fight, however, is the beginning, because the Stray Demon battle is one of the few surprise fights in the game, meaning it comes out of nowhere. So it's like, there's no white fog or anything like that to indicate a boss like, you have with every other boss in the game. He just suddenly smashes the floor you're walking on, and you fall down to the floor in the boss fight area, and you have no way of escape except to fight him. So for me, that whole experience, that whole moment of suddenly randomly falling down as something smashes the floor and having a boss fight is one of the best moments in the game. The one downside of this boss fight is that it doesn't have much in terms of battle progression, which basically means his attack patterns don't change over time. So once you get a feel for the fight, it becomes a bit easier, you don't have much issue. And on to number 7. Whoa. The Great Grey Wolf Sith. So the battle against Sith for me personally is definitely one of the more atmospheric battles in the game. For starters, you're fighting against a giant wolf, which is awesome in itself, and then you're also fighting a giant wolf with a giant sword, which if you think about it, it kind of reminds you of Amaterasu from Okami, which is only good. And not only that, the fight itself is really fun as well, especially if you're not over leveled when you're fighting him. The fact that you can be a bit over leveled when you fight him kind of pushes him down the list, but nevertheless he is still a fun fight because he's particularly fast and he has a mix up of normal and area of effect attacks. So that's why it makes it really fun boss fight. You need to constantly time when you attack, and you need to constantly figure out when best to run away. And the other thing about this fight is that shields don't really work against him, so the best tactic is to just to roll and dodge, and if you're a melee user, two-hand your weapon. Now I fought him as a mage and a melee user, and as a mage it is a bit easy, much easier as a mage, but it is really fun as a melee fighter. And the one downside to this battle is that it's one of the sections in the game that has frame rate issues, and sometimes the frame rate will drop when you're fighting Sith, which is a bit of annoying. The best aspects about this fight is the atmosphere. So part of that is about learning the lore of the game and how Sith is set to guard the area he was in, among other things. I don't want to give too much spoilers, but the other part is just that during the battle itself, Sith will get visibly weaker once he loses a good chunk of health, and you'll see him limp around, and his attacks will be much weaker and slower than before. So that's a bit, that's a bit heart-wrenching, to see as a player, because it just feels like you're being an ass, you're being a bully for hitting the final blow against Sith. And then we move on to number 6.
Whoa!
Which is Gwyn, Lord of Cinder. So the final boss of Dark Souls is one tough SOB. And but it still starts off in a really cool fashion. You know, Gwyn just slowly stands up and then jumps at you to attack you. There's no cutscene, no dialogue here, which is kind of a really cool way to start the fight. Especially if you've been paying attention to the lore of Dark Souls and know about Gwyn's backstory and influence in the game. So even the background music is simple, yet you know it really affects you as a final battle. And of course, to note, he is one of the harder boss fights in the game because he is very fast and can inflict a lot of damage. And also, like Sif, he is also somewhat random in his attack pattern, so he requires, you know, a lot of more attention to detail during the fight itself. And Gwyn also likes to keep up the pressure on the player, like one of those, like was it the Flame Lurker in Demon Souls? Yeah, he just constantly kind of attacks you. So not only is he fast, he doesn't give you much room to think, let alone react, you know, or to heal or stuff like that. It also speaks volumes that one of the most effective ways to beat Gwyn is to properly execute parries and to riposte with each successful parry. It's one of the harder skills to pull off in the game, and you know, especially if you haven't done it for most of the game, because it requires timing and you know it requires being confident enough to carry it out. Because one missed parry and you will likely die. So it's not the only way to kill him, it's not the only viable method, but it is effective. So, you know, trust the final boss of the game to push you to improve your own playing abilities. That's what Dark Souls is about, really. And at number 5. We have the Chaos Witch K-Lag. It's one of the earlier fights in the game, which is one of the harder fights for that point in time. She will probably be one of the harder fights you face in the beginning of the game, definitely. So, but then again, you don't expect a half spider, half lady monster to be easy now, do you? So touching on the fight itself, you know, one of the good things, or one of the fun things about the fight is that K-Lag has a lot of variety in her attacks. She has range attacks, she has normal attacks, and she has attacks that, you know, her lava attacks, which restrict movement because, you know, her fighting arena is big, but then once her lava starts spraying around everywhere, you're restricted in movement and you need to pay attention to where you're running because you can die easily. Why she's up here in this list is because, well, if you think about it, if you think back to when you first fight K-Lag, she offers a smile that's not actually for you but for the humanity within you, because you see K-Lag makes it her duty to take other people's humanities in order to provide them to her sister Kaylan. So Kaylan is the white fair lady behind the illusory wall in the K-Lag's domain. And like every other daughter of Chaos or daughter of the Witch of Izalith, except one, Kaylana, which have been transformed into a hideous monster, Kaylan is one of them too. She's a half spider, half lady too. But she alone is the only one that suffers extreme constant pain. So the only way to get rid of that pain is to provide her with humanity, which K-Lag does. But even then, it only relieves her pain for a few seconds. But still, K-Lag takes it upon herself to protect her sister, and she hides Kaylan behind an illusory wall and collects humanity for her, basically. You, of course, come along and then break this relationship by defeating K-Lag, although the option to collect humanity for Kaylan is still available, since because Kaylan is blind, she doesn't know that K-Lag's been killed, and mistakes your interactions with her as those from K-Lag, which is kinda sad. So the battle is memorable for two things. One is a hard fight early on in the game, which is still kind of fun, and it also introduces you to the misfortune of the Daughters of Chaos, as you know, bringing the atmosphere to the fight, basically. And at number 4 is the Four Kings. So like I said before, this list isn't based purely on difficulty, but if it was, the Four Kings would most likely be the top of that list. It's probably not the hardest fight you'll have in your first playthrough, but in subsequent fights in New Game Plus, because, you know, every boss gains more health and gains more strength, it becomes much harder later on in subsequent playthroughs, basically. And the reason for that is because the Four Kings boss fight is a fight against time. So, you know, at first, only one form of the Four Kings appears, but over time, many more forms will appear until a maximum of 4 are on screen. So if you don't kill each form quickly, you'll be faced with 4 pretty damn powerful foes. I mean, even one of them is strong enough. It's already hard enough to fight against. And the forms all continuously appear over time too. So even if you defeated 2 foes already, 2 forms already, if you take your time defeating the rest, more forms will still appear. So you could overall be facing 6 or 7 forms of the 4 kings, which is way too many. You want to be only facing 4 or 5 at most. And the other thing to make note of the fight is that each king is similar in appearance, and because of that they have similar attack patterns, all of which are pretty powerful. They have long range attacks, and they have a long range weapon, so the attacks cover long range anyway, and they attack both horizontally and vertically. And then they have magic attacks which have area of effect range, and also a homing ability that lasts quite a while. Running away from his homing magic is a pain in the ass. So because each form is strong, you don't have much time to dilly-dally in trying to kill them, because if you wait, just more forms will appear, and fighting one is already a pain, but 2, 3 or even 4 is really a struggle. So it doesn't help that the fight is a bit of surprise too. I mean, you fall into the abyss maybe expecting a whole new area to explore. That's what I was personally expecting. Only the thing is, you get planted straight into a boss fight. Then you have to permanently allocate 1 ring slot to wear the ring that allows you to walk on the abyss, which means you're already suboptimal for battle. And then the abyss itself is also a bit freaky. It's a dark and black area with nothing in sight, giving you no clue as to your surroundings or as to where each king form will appear from. So that's all really just adds to the fight. The one crumb of comfort that I found, especially in my playthrough, is that sometimes only 1 form will appear or will chase you at a time. Only 1 form will chase you. So even if there's like 2 or 3 kings on screen, only 1 will chase you. So sometimes a divide and conquer strategy can work, but it's not guaranteed. And that's the 4 kings for you, basically. At number 3, we have the Crossbreed Priscilla. So the main reason that I like this fight and why it's listed high up here is because of the atmosphere, probably making it my favorite fight in terms of atmosphere. First, you need to know about Priscilla and her dungeon area, the Painted World of Ariamis. Not only is it a beautiful area, but it's the area, if you learn about the lore of Dark Souls, it's the area that Priscilla ran away to escape from discrimination in the real world, because she was a mutant, half dragon, half human. And as for the fight itself, Priscilla is the only boss who offers you the option to not fight once you've entered the boss arena. That alone speaks volume for her character. Unlike the other bosses, she doesn't just presume you've entered her domain to kill her, and allows you to leave her world in peace. She's an optional boss too, so you don't even have to face her. But of course, you being the monster that you are, decide to fight, of course. And the fact that Priscilla is as white as snow complements the fact that the painted world is full of snow, adding to the atmosphere. She then turns invisible once the fight starts, making it hard to fight her, even making the fight itself interesting. She also comes equipped with a scythe that can cause the bleeding effect, which hurts. She's a semi-hard boss, I'd say, given the invisibility thing that will catch many off guard, and plus some of her attacks really can hurt. But if you're over-leveled, things get a bit easier. I should also give special mention to her boss team, which is one of the best boss teams in the game. Okay, and we continue our list at number 2. We have the Iron Golem. So this is gonna surprise a lot of people, but for me, the Iron Golem is here for one reason in particular, and that was it was the most fun boss battle that I had in the game personally. That alone is what brings it this high up in the list, because it was a hella fun fight and I enjoyed the battle tremendously. Of course, I know the Iron Golem fight is a very easy boss fight, especially for a melee player, although because I was a sorcerer at the beginning, the first time I fought him, it took a bit longer than I assume most melee players would take. Nevertheless, it still strikes me as a really fun fight. The fight itself takes place atop a bridge with a circular middle platform and 2 narrow walkways attached to it. So it's a small stage and you can easily fall off if you aren't careful. And if you leave one of the other golems outside the boss area alive, he'll throw explosives onto the middle section of the boss battle. So basically limiting you to only fighting on the narrow walkways. So all of that makes it a really fun boss fight for me personally, because it's really probably the best parts of Dark Souls. You've got a big giant monster. He've got attack patterns that how would you say, they aren't really area of effect attack patterns. The Iron Golem doesn't really have an area of effect attack. So all he has is like normal attacks that have really short ranges, which, you know, is kind of similar to what you have as a player as well. So it kind of really complements, I'd say, the fight. And the fact that you're fighting on a narrow area as well helps as well, because you really need to pay attention not only to him and his attack patterns, but also to the ledges. So, you know, just all of that, you know, just rolling around. And I mean, rolling and dodging around is inherently fun anyway, because, you know, you do it when there are no bosses around, when there are no enemies around. And for me, you know, it's just the whole thing. You know, you have to time your attacks, you have to time your counter attacks. All of that just made it fun. And, you know, if you aren't careful, his attacks can hurt as well. You know, they can cause you damage. And if you're playing with the other golem out there throwing those explosives, you know, that just adds to it. And he has a pretty damn cool boss team too. Plus, you know, when you fight him and you make him fall off the bridge, that's really, really satisfying. So for me, that's why he's at number 2. He's just a really fun boss fight. And at number 1, we have the top boss fight of Dark Souls for me personally, which is Ornstein and Smough. So here's my number 1 boss fight for Dark Souls. It's these 2 nerds, which are arguably the hardest boss fight you'll face during your first playthrough. You've got 2 strong enemies with 2 different fighting styles that complement each other really well, basically trying to tear you down. It's a daunting battle that has caused many people to rage, I know. So, like I said, I didn't make this list based with difficulty purely in mind, and it isn't. Because whilst this fight itself is hard, it's really fun too. For starters, you've got 2 different opponents with different abilities you have to contend with, you know, so you've got to look out for different things. Whereas, say, like the 4 kings, they're all, even if there are 4 forms of them, they all attack the same way. They also both constantly chase you down in a relatively medium to small area. I'd say small for 2 opponents, medium size for 1 opponent. And again, I'd say the 4 kings, like I said before, sometimes they don't give chase, you know, sometimes they just hang back. Whereas these guys, they always chase you. There's also battle progression in this fight. You know, it's a word you haven't heard me use a lot in this list, because there just aren't that many battle progressions in the game. Which basically means, when I say battle progression, what it means is that there's a change during battle itself. After you defeat one opponent, the other absorbs his downed ally and becomes bigger and stronger, changing the flow of the battle. So not many fights in Dark Souls have this, you know, battle progression, you know, change in the battle itself. So that to me makes the fight even more special and unique in the world of Dark Souls. And then you have to remember that this has probably the best boss theme in the game. You know, the background music is just plain awesome. So these guys are hard, they hit hard and don't really allow you much time to heal, and they have I know that they don't have a lot of atmosphere to them, because, you know, there isn't really much backstory to them. They do have a backstory, but it's fairly lightly touched upon. And I know they are technically guarding, you know, something or someone. Again, I don't want to get into specifics. But nevertheless, a fun fight is a fun fight, and you have to be really patient with it. But the end reward of having beaten a very tough boss fight is really, really worth it. So that's my top 8 boss battles in Dark Souls. And I just wanted to add something extra here for my followers and subscribers. First off, I'm really hoping that the Prepare to Die edition brings, you know, more bosses that are similar to this, you know, really fun boss fights. And you know, if you guys have a different top 8, you know, just list them in the comment sections below. I'd love to know what you guys think about the bosses in Dark Souls. Having said that, I want to ask you guys if you would, you know, want me to showcase, you know, the Prepare to Die edition and all the extra new content in that game. If I do get it, I'll get it on the PC. I don't want to wait until, you know, whenever the DLC comes out for the PlayStation version. And if I do get for the PC, I'll probably sell off my PS3 version, which also means I'll be starting a whole new character as well, because, you know, I can't use my sorcerer anymore. And if I start off a new character, I probably won't be a sorcerer, just to mix things up even more. I'll probably be a melee user or something like that. So, you know, do you guys want to see that? Do you guys want to see me go through the new content with the new bosses? Or, you know, depending on response, I may even live stream once I get the game. Who knows? I'm not too sure. It depends how it goes. It depends if you guys want to see that. If you guys want to see that, you know, leave a comment below, you know, like the video or whatnot. And, you know, we can enjoy the Prepare to Die edition together. I kind of look forward to getting it, actually. So if you guys want to see it, see the boss fights, you know, just tell me. But thanks for watching this video. Hope you enjoyed the top 8 list. I hope to do more things like this in the future. And see you next time.